What's the most unbalanced homebrew rule a DM threw at you? Leave yours in the comments below. Today's sponsor is the best available. Come see these intrepid adventurers grow stronger and delve into the dungeon of the Mad Mage in a lovingly edited and illustrated D&D web series. Link in the description. The DM gave me a +1 studded leather armor that adds twice my dexterity modifier to AC. I ended up with like 25 AC. My favorite one-shot was when the DM said we didn't have to pick known spells. We could cast any spell available to our class as long as we had the slots for it. I was playing a bard. It was the best infiltration mission of all time. We had a blast. If you grapple someone, not even restrained, just grapple, they can't do anything other than use an action to try to escape the grapple. No attacks, no spells, not even purely verbal actions. Nothing! This was, of course, first introduced as a rule against my wizard a few sessions after I joined the game, midway through the campaign. As soon as the fight starts, one guy goes for my wizard. I manage to escape somehow, move 30 feet away, and they, of course, move the same distance on their turn and grapple again. I manage to escape again, move, and misty step away this time. This one dude then, of course, spends his whole turn dashing over to my wizard. Now, I can't remember exactly how many turns I spent trying and failing to escape, or how the fight actually ended, but I do remember the sheer frustration. I also remember that I was kicked out of the campaign before the next session because the DM thought he had too many players now. So I'm half suspicious he was actually just trying to get me to rage quit. The other half thinks he was just being a dumbass. The DM made it so that if you miss an attack, you still deal 1 damage. We thought this was really underwhelming until they introduced minions into encounters. Minions were something they had in 4th edition. They're basically just weak monsters with 1 HP. Filler monsters, as it were. The Flee Mortals book brought them into 5th edition, updating them to have some HP. When you're using AoE spells that affect a pool of HP, or if you hit and the damage dice roll over that HP amount, you could kill another one. Otherwise, if you hit them, they're dead. I don't think this was a bad choice because it meant even on a miss, you were still doing something. As a rogue player, you have to exactly describe how you're searching for traps and disarming them. You cannot roll to investigate, you cannot use passive perception, and you cannot use any skills. Do not collect 200, do not pass go. You have to guess what the trap might be, figure out how you could disable it, and describe it perfectly. Guess how much fun a 3-session-long dungeon crawl was when we had to do this at every door, every corner, all stairs, all objects, etc. I assume it's not fun at all. They got rid of the charisma stat for role-playing. You could only speak exactly how your character would, and persuasion, deception, etc. were not skills that you could actually use. The DM also banned all spells that weren't on his approved list. His listing said he was only reflavoring 5th edition and that there weren't many real house rules. That was a lie. I left in the middle of session 0. That temporary HP stacked. This happened right as the murder hobo Fiend Warlock joined the group, and as a level 2 character, he managed to have something like 400 HP from slaughtering every man, woman, child, enemy, and ally he came across. I have stories from previous editions, but these days, I play with people who don't use silly house rules. But yeah, we had a DM who would bring up ridiculous house rules every week, and we'd abuse them exactly the way we told him we would, and then he'd roll them back, over and over. Ironically, none of his house rules stuck, so it was kind of a pretty normal game. It's not insane, but one of my current DMs has us use the max for HP rolls whenever we level up. So if you'd normally roll 1d8 plus 2, then you'd just get 10 HP, no roll required. Obviously, this affects combat balance pretty heavily, so I don't know if he anticipated that. I had a DM with the philosophy that you should give the players whatever they want. One player got a 30 AC, unlimited reactions, an infinitely scaling attack, and advantage on all saving throws. Other people also got a lot, but that was stupid since it was impossible to hit him. Probably the most boring game I've ever been in. Zero tension, combat was just rolling dice until we won with no HP loss. Re-rolling initiative at the top of every round. We weren't able to continue with that campaign for other reasons, but we were incredibly skeptical about how that would work with effects lasting a full round, or until the start or end of someone's next turn. A DM didn't quite understand what X plus Y hit dice meant, so if a creature had 5 plus 10 in the description, he thought it had 15 hit dice, 5 HD plus 10 HD, instead of 5 HD plus 10 HP. Made creatures a lot tougher than they should have been. The DM ruled that Lightning Bolt only hit the first target in line, not passing through enemies. The same DM had a crit fumble table that used missing by 5, 10, or 15 to inflict increasingly bad effects. It also went off your roll before modifiers, so roll a 7 against an AC of 13, drop your weapon, baby. If you die and no one can revivify you, then you can choose to come back as a revenant with the revenant stat block and abilities. But you also get to keep your original racial and class traits. Now, I do give the DM credit for trying to keep the game going and thinking outside the box, but revenants have +4 in strength, con, and charisma. They also have regeneration. The revenant regains 10 HP at the start of its turn. If it takes fire or radiant damage, this trait doesn't function at the start of the revenant's next turn. The revenant's body is destroyed only if it starts its turn with 0 HP and doesn't regenerate. Rejuvenation! When the revenant's body is destroyed, its soul lingers. After 24 hours, it inhabits and animates another humanoid corpse on the same plane and regains all its hit points. While bodiless, a wish spell can be used to force the soul to go to the afterlife and not return. While the DM did have good intentions, it just didn't work in practice. Same DM over 3 sessions. The first of the awful sessions had a madness mechanic requiring a saving throw that we rolled 3d6 for at the start of the game and couldn't augment. The first saving throw had a DC over 20, and failing it once meant you could permanently be put out of commission. Another player and I failed, and we spent hours unable to control our characters. After 4 hours in game, the DM started giving us saving throws at the end of our turns, then lowered the DC a bunch, and we finally succeeded. I cast Summon Greater Demon. The demon failed the saving throw because it didn't have a stat for madness, and was basically useless. Then, a player character revealed they had the same madness mechanic with an over 20 DC that made everyone mad. I eventually got another turn, but the combat was basically finished by then. After almost 8 hours of combat, I only had 2 turns. The second session wasn't too bad, though the mental scars of the last session lingered. However, in the third session, every level of a spell had a 25% chance to fail. But what the storyteller did was roll a D100 for every level. And if you had one fail, your spell completely failed and triggered a wild magic event. But most of the wild magic events seemed to be, you can't cast spells anymore. Woo! I was a wizard. I didn't have time to buy weapons. I couldn't find weapons on the ground. And even casting a cantrip counted for the 25% chance of failure. It was another session of many players being virtually useless, just slogging through as a wizard with a dagger. Most unbalanced rule probably was the one that DM threw in, but it hilariously worked to the player's advantage while nerfing a lot of combat. The DM started a campaign and ruled that all damage dice of any type exploded If you roll max, you roll an extra die. If that rolls max, you add another, etc. I think the DM wanted to make it feel action-packed, but since we started at level 3, it just had the effect of turning all of us into glass cannons. The DM's encounters were built from the player's handbook, so level 3 appropriate fights felt like cardboard, but we were still squishy, even though we were dealing way more than our max HP worth of damage every single turn. This was a Pathfinder game where my DM loved crazy house rules and gave everyone powerful traits. One player constantly complained about their Ranger Druid multi-class being too underpowered and somehow convinced the DM to let them have full Druid spellcasting with full Ranger BAB. It was crazy overpowered. That player was awful and a huge misogynist, which ended in them being kicked, hopefully right in the nards. The most unbalanced rule against players I've seen is that every single enemy makes a perception check when you start combat from stealth, regardless of whether you beat their passive perception. Literally just better off walking in and screaming, "I intend to do violence!" and just going for intimidation. All drow are slaver assholes. All dwarves are surly drunks. All elves are haughty fops. All halflings are impish thieves, etc. Only humans can have varied personalities. Essentially, the rule at the table was that you had to adhere to racial stereotypes if you played one of those races outside of human. I was playing a monk, and the DM said I could attack too many times on my turn. So they ruled that I could only get my extra attacks if I successfully hit the previous one. So it didn't matter that I could attack 3 times if I whiffed the first or second attack. Luckily, everyone at the table immediately stood up for me. Didn't stay with that DM much longer anyway for other nonsense. I'm not sure if unbalanced is the right term here, but this is the first thing that comes to mind. If you nat 1 on a spell attack roll and only negative wild magic table, it's horrible in terms of flavor. Forced changes on your character, damaging allies or yourself. It really is so unfun. He also has nat 1s for weapons, such as attacking allies, breaking weapons, exhaustion, disadvantage on certain things until a long rest. I had just received an epic boon, and I chose the boon of true sight. His words were, "I've decided that this choice is going to bite you in the ass." And he made my character have disadvantage on any attack against anything that wasn't in its true form. So anyone polymorphed, wild-shaped, shape-changed, disguised self, anything like that, I would be at disadvantage to hit. Because in his mind, I would be seeing both the true form and the false form, therefore I couldn't tell which was real. How many fingers are you holding up? Playing a yearly homebrew PvP one-off game my coworker DMs where each turn uses initiative, but is broken up between each character multiple times. Each PC moves in order, then each PC searches in order, then challenges another, or attacks or whatever. So, if you have higher initiative and want to fight someone, you'd move to their character. Then you have to wait, then they can just move away from you on their turn, and now you're screwed. He won't listen to reason that it slows the game down terribly, and the mechanics of it are just bad. Instead of going around the table once per turn, it's like 5 times per turn. Initiative was also re-rolled every turn. Fun, but it really could be better in my honest opinion. Hey everybody, Brian Von VA checking after the vid. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, ring that bell, and let us know in the comments below what was the most unbalanced homebrew rule a DM ever threw at you. And if you ever want to help us with our unbalanced issues over here, make sure to join our membership. You don't have to, but you do get early access to videos and a little bit more maybe down the line too, we don't know. Until then, we love you all. Please be safe, happy, and healthy, and we'll see you next time.